Whew. What's up, booties? It's Nick Nobody Savage. Once again, I just have to say that I am sorry that this episode's coming out a little bit later, or a lot a bit later than anticipated. All I'm going to say is, mental health is no joke. Sometimes it is harder to get motivated to do things than others. And I really am trying to resurrect this podcast and make it something that I think people will really enjoy and come to love and, grow a community around, which was always the goal initially with this podcast. So I would like to apologize and let you guys know that obviously the events that we promote for Sir Vix during the episode have obviously passed, but you can follow them on Instagram at sir.vix.official. That is sir.vix and then official. You can keep They can keep you up to date on all of their upcoming shows for September and onwards. Other than that, enjoy the episode. It's a really good one. It's one I'm pretty proud of, and I really think you're going to enjoy Sir Vix's costume. Other than that, I don't want to give too much more away, so enjoy the episode, and you know what I'm going to say. Be careful out there. You never know. You may get dabbed to death.
Hey, all you voodoods and voodolls and all you voodies in between, it is Nick Nobody Savage, and I am back with another special guest episode of Dab to Death. Joining me in the studio and in full and fantastic face is Sir Vix. Vix is a Sacramento local drag king and performance artist, and I was actually super excited to hear that you wanted to be on this episode. Because I remember seeing you perform at the show with the Boulay Brothers, and it was totally awesome.
Don't worry, I cut my nipples off.
Yeah, but my next point is, watching someone cut their nipple off and feed it to someone in the audience tends to leave an impression.
I mean, they were strawberry flavored. Why not eat them?
Perhaps you can explain to our listeners, since I feel like they might be a little confused, exactly how did you cut your nipples off?
Oh, well, that's a little secret of the trade, but good thing I am not good at keeping secrets. I remember when I was hit up to be part of the Boulay Brothers show. It was such an honor to perform with the Scream Queens and with the Boulay Brothers. It was such a great show. And I was like, well, I need to do something big. It's the Boulay Brothers. Like, you can't just be like, man, I'm scary. I thought about it, and I have a background in special effects makeup that I started when I was like 12, 13. I was really big into special effects makeup and costuming when I was really little. I'd gotten into, when I started special effects makeup, I would use, tissue, whatever was at hand to make wounds. And I thought, what can you make a nipple out of? Just a little bit of backstory. I am transmasculine and have had top surgery. So post-top surgery, which is a double mastectomy, I elected not to have nipples because I don't need them to get in the way of my future tattoos, to be honest. I wanted a clean slate for tattoos. Yeah. And plus I like feeling like a little alien. It's fun. So I didn't have the nipple. I had a clean slate. So I thought, what can I make a nipple out of that is edible and will hold most of its shape? And strawberry Laffy Taffy was the first thing
if you were ever curious, if you ever wanted to try it out.
Yeah, you can actually form taffy into the shape of a nipple by pinching the middle, and keep it cold, put it on right before you go on stage. And then I used a real knife, which I showed the audience was real. But I used the real knife to just kind of peel the candy off my torso.
Yeah.
And then I had a blood packet in my glove with a tube going out my finger.
Oh.
So that as I held the nipple, I could squeeze the blood packet, blood would go everywhere, and I would just peel off the candy.
Nice. Okay.
So it was a great stage effect. But then that was followed by staple gunning, which is not a stage effect. That is really staple gun going into my skin.
Yeah.
Which I do not recommend you do unless you
do not try this at home.
Do not try this at home unless you are super into it and fully aware of how of everything that goes into staple gunning, and make sure to clean up.
Do your
very,
research
very well.
first.
Every time I've done a staple gun number, it has been followed by alcohol wipes and a lot of cleaning procedures.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it looks a lot more chaotic on stage, but it's done professionally.
Yeah, I can't remember the show it was, but it was like kind of like a freak show, sideshow kind of
I
thing.
love freak shows. That's my bread and butter.
And there was this guy on there, and I can't for the life of me remember his name, but he did like, he let people staple money to him, but he did all kinds of other crazy stuff. And then I actually ended up seeing him on, I think, America's Got Talent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it was really cool to see him here in Sacramento, and then to see him on America's Got Talent.
We've also had we had a couple different like America's Got Talent. We had Oliver Graves. He's a
yes, I remember that.
I've had a couple different people from Sacramento. That's the only name I can remember because I remember his set and it was very stood out. Yeah, we have a lot of really good talent in Sacramento. A lot of really underrepresented talent in Sacramento. That especially like in the alt and AFAB performers, and just like alt and creature performers. We've got a lot there. I know a lot of Sacramento drag looks like a lot of pageant queens, but we've got a lot more than more than pageant queens.
Right. Yeah, actually, I had found the Sacramento News and Review article from 2019 that you were in, and it talks about like the history of the drag king scene specifically in Sacramento, and then how it kind of just died off for a while.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, we've had a couple different iterations of drag king scenes in Sacramento. Most have died out, have like had a good 5-6 years and then die out due to just a lack of support. There's still a lot of headway that needs to be made in AFAB and transmasculine and drag king representation. There's some audience members that don't know what it is. There are some fellow performers that will say things like, "Oh, I hire talent. I don't just hire diversity." And it's like, well, we have talent. We have a lot of talent there.
Exactly.
It's just knowing how to look at it, how to value it, how to support it, and how to involve it. Yeah. So there's great talent in Sacramento. Yeah. But you've met a lot of talented people in Sacramento, so
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly one of like my favorite places that I've lived. I like moved around a lot as a kid, and I was born in Southern California, and then we moved all around there, and then halfway through my freshman year, we moved up to Fairfield, and so then I lived in Marin County for a while. Like I've been all around California basically, but Sacramento.
I was born and raised in Marin County.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Whereabouts?
Like right near San Marin High School.
Oh, okay. I went to San Marin for a year.
Me too. I went to San Marin for all 4 years.
No, I went for my senior year because that's when we ended up moving there. And it was funny because I kind of messed around in school a lot. And like, so a week or two before graduation, the counselor pulls me in and he's like, "So I don't know how to tell you this, but you're not going to graduate with your class." And I looked at him and I'm like, "Dude, I'm a senior with freshman level credits. Like, if you had to go to college to figure out that I'm not going to graduate, then I'm wasting my time here."
Or like, "Excuse me, I figured that out a while ago.
Right.
This is news to you."
Yeah, you just figured this out 2 weeks before graduation. I knew this coming into my sophomore year. Like,
you're like, "I was aware I wasn't going to graduate in middle school. Thank you. Have a good day.
It's super.
Let me get back to my life."
It's super ironic though, because
moving
like
around that much continuity of education is so rough.
But it was weird because like all the way up until high school, I was like honor roll, gifted programs, GATE student, all this crap.
So neurodivergent and undiagnosed.
Yeah. And then going into my freshman year, I was supposed to be in like honors classes, algebra 2, biotechnology 1, which like most high schools don't even offer, and so like I was supposed to go on all these classes, and honestly it kind of overloaded me and I just kind of like burned out. And then we moved to Fairfield halfway through the year. And moving from Southern California to Northern California, and like
culture shock
from this like quiet little, town in Southern California to like Fairfield, which is kind of ghetto and a little hyphy.
It's a little wild.
It's a little hyphy,
Let's just say it is much more developed.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I kind of
a lot of things going on.
I kind of thrived there, which is weird. Not educationally, obviously, but in other ways.
Socially.
Yeah, socially.
So I thrived a lot educationally. I did not thrive socially. I don't think I thrived socially until like late college.
Yeah.
I was not a social person. I was like, let me go home and sew things and do makeup.
Yeah, no, I found alcohol and weed in high school, and I was like, I can be social.
I see. I didn't find alcohol or weed till college, and the first time
Oh,
I smoked
yeah.
weed, I punched 2 people.
Oh my god.
Well, their faces just kept getting close to my face, and like my peripheral vision went out, and
You're
I
like,
punched my
you're in my
boyfriend at the
bubble.
time and my ex-girlfriend
Oh wow.
in the chest twice each. And that ex-girlfriend to this day still will not smoke weed because I scared her. I smoke weed now. It's fine.
Right.
I just, yeah. So, but it was also like the second time I'd ever drank alcohol, and they were like, drink this vodka, it'll help your throat because it hurts now.
Yeah.
And I got crossfaded. It was a mess. I'm better now. I'm an
Yeah.
adult. Don't do drinking and
Sometimes.
alcohol when you're kids and you aren't supported.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
Just
god.
make sure you're mentally ready for it. I was not.
Nah,
I was so
I
not.
definitely was not.
Mhm.
No. Yeah.
Live, learn, grow up.
Yeah. Right. Eventually. Yeah, it might take longer for some people,
I'm
myself
31
included.
and I'm still working on it.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Like I'm turning 34 this year, and I'm just now starting to get my shit kind of together. You know, like considering where I was a few years ago, like homeless and doing all this other shit. Like I'm doing way better
Oh,
now.
congrats.
Yeah.
Shit, yeah.
Um.
I get that. About 5 years ago, I was getting out of, or 6 years ago, I was getting out of the shittiest relationship and staying on couches
Yeah.
to like make it. I think part of, 20s is going through that period of being like, oh shit, I need to be an adult now. And then by the time you're in your 30s, you look at people in their 20s and you're like, oh God, get your life together. Like we were
Right.
doing the exact same shit in our 20s.
Right. I'm like, where are your parents? Oh wait.
Fuck, where were my
were,
parents?
Yeah, people were saying that about me. So like,
Oh, the young ones. Identify.
Oh shit. All right. So I'm gonna intro some of the stuff I've got to dab on. It's all Paper
Yes.
Planes brand products.
Love that.
So I've got the Melon Tree Diamond Sauce. If the lid'll come off. Oh yeah, there we go. This was part of the Lemon Tree Farms collaboration that we did. And then I've got Pina Cured Resin Batter, Lemon Urkel Cured Resin
Ooh.
Batter, and Joker's 41 Live Resin Batter.
I'm a sucker for good names, man.
I'll let the motorcycle go by. So yeah, I have little hookah hoses here. Since
Yes.
wouldn't want you to mess up your face.
Thank you. I
I
appreciate
don't-
that.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So which would you like to try?
Let's try the Joker. That
The
sounds
Joker.
fun.
All right.
I feel like I'm half painted like the Joker. Might as well.
Oh no! Did I leave the carb cap downstairs?
Possibly. You want me to go get it?
I can grab it. I know where it is.
Okay.
Got the carb cap. So you said the Joker.
Yes, the Joker looked good.
Let me just make sure. Actually, I think now that levels are good, I don't really need those on.
Cool.
Sometimes, like wearing them for like multiple hours at a time, it's just like they press down, and you're
As someone wearing horns, I get it.
yeah. Well, and that's why I didn't even like suggest the headphones. I was like, you got a lot
I'm like,
going
I
on.
could,
Yeah,
but
no,
it would
it's
be
fine.
back here. There might be face paint on it later.
All right, try not to go a little too crazy for you. Oh, okay, there we go. Slowly melting in there. I guess that wasn't on the glass the whole time. Come on, get off of the dab tool. There you go.
I had asthma as a kid. I could just do a breathing treatment. It's remarkable how easy it is to smoke weed when you've had asthma as a kid.
I
I feel
actually,
like the built-in square breathing is already there.
yeah, I had childhood asthma, like especially when I was super young, and then I don't know, it just like kind of went away. Except this one time in high school, I was in band, and I was a percussionist. So
Oh yeah, you did
yeah,
drums.
yeah. I started out on saxophone in like 4th grade, but I just didn't have the lung capacity because childhood asthma. Uh, so then I went to drums because number one, I can't read music, but I know when to hit something, So like, and I just like I instantly loved it, and so I stuck with that all the way up until high school, and
Yeah.
then so I was in band, and the teacher was like, they were doing some xylophone test, and that involves reading notes, and so like I was in line to get to the test, and like as I got closer I just started panicking, so I'm pretty sure it was like more of like a panic attack instead of an asthma attack, but it like triggered to where I just could not breathe.
I had a few years back in elementary school that my asthma went into remission, and I joined track and field.
Yeah.
Best couple years of my fucking life. I loved it. I loved running.
Yeah.
And
I
then
did track too for a while.
one year it just like and then I couldn't do it again. It sucked.
Yeah.
Asthma's a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, because I've been a long time smoker too, now I've done a lot of damage to my lungs. So yeah, I went from, I had childhood asthma to I'm going to be a pack-a-day smoker after high school. And like, it was so bad. I'm so glad I don't smoke cigarettes
I've never
anymore.
smoked cigarettes, which is lucky for me.
Yeah.
But I have vaped before. And I was like, that tastes like cookies.
Right.
But my mom also told me when I was very young that she had an allergy to marijuana and that she would die before finishing it. Or not marijuana, to cigarettes, and she would die before finishing a cigarette. So I was like, well, I'm not going to try that. That's scary. I don't know if she's lying or telling the truth, but it worked.
Right. Yeah, no. My mom tried to steer me clear of weed and all that, but she also is a prison guard, and before that she was a substance abuse counselor at a women's prison. So it's kind of like, that they say about like cops kids, how they're always like the worst.
I got my mom smoking weed on Christmas. And my sister was so offended. And I was just like, maybe it's not that bad.
Right.
I still waited till I was like 19 to smoke just because I was like, me asthma, you can't. And then I smoked it, and then I punched people, and then I waited like another year and a half to smoke again.
Oh, jeez.
Since then, I've tried a lot of different shit, but weed is the only thing that has stuck.
Nice. Alrighty, well.
Do you want to start talking about cults and conspiracy theories?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Which one do we want to
start
with? Do you want to start with the cults?
Actually, I have it outlined a little bit.
Love it. Love an outline.
Okay, let me just clear this out for you. All right, and I think I will swap this out. Whoa. That thing jumped.
Right?
But yeah, so I kind of have it a little bit outlined. And I guess I will start with this because it's while I'm dabbing and it gives you a good chance to talk. So it says, now before we get into the topic for this week's episode, which is that of Russian cult leader Sergei Anatolyevich Torop, known as Vissarion. You have a certain conspiracy theory that kind of ties in with Russia. Care to share?
Yes, I do. Okay, so a little background on me. My mom's father is her adoptive father, and his whole family's Russian. So I have like this interest in Russian like culture, and as a queer trans person, that's awkward. So I got kind of into like the harmful effects of Christianity, the harmful effects of dictatorships, because Vladimir Putin's been there for decades, which kind of ties in.
He's looked the same the entire time,
dude. Right? When you own a whole fucking people, I think you can own it. One of them is going to be a pretty decent doctor or plastic surgeon. But so I got really into like Russian culture and learning a lot about like Russian conspiracy theories. And I don't know if people remember this, but a couple of years ago, I have the article on my phone because I was like, let's save sources. That's smart. There was this whole thing that hit the news about Havana syndrome. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yes. So a bunch of different people were developing Havana syndrome. which is basically an insanity triggered by a weapon. Um, so blah, 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 there we go. So Havana syndrome can be caused by, among many other kinds of sonic and different kinds of waves, microwaves. Not like, a microwave, but like what microwaves use, like the actual waves. So there are, obviously weapons that can emit certain noises, certain frequencies that are not that you can't hear with your own ears. Certain men and women hear in different frequencies.
Certain age groups.
Different age groups here. Certain we can lose our higher notes as we get older. So in the I want to say like 70s, Russia started looking into sonic weaponry. And how to weaponize certain waves in order to essentially destabilize people. They found that different frequencies, different chemicals can trigger rage, insanity, lack of ability to recall certain memories, all those things. So with all of that, they started developing weapons that could emit certain frequencies that would destabilize people in the field. Those waves and those different frequencies can trigger what is called Havana syndrome, which is an instability, a mental instability in a person that is triggered by an external force that is not in a person that doesn't have like a history of that behavior.
Right.
So
a few like no family history, no anything like that, and all of a sudden just
just all of a sudden they snap and people don't know why. Now, that I do want to take it aside and say that none of this is discounting mental health. I do really believe in therapy and medication. I was on antidepressants for like 5 years and it was super helpful for me. I encourage anyone to get mental help if they feel themselves fraying, or if they feel just lacks not support, they just need someone to talk to. I really encourage that. That being said, there is a functioning psychiatric theory that is mental health is a combination of nature and nurture. We have genes that are in our body that can be turned on by environmental factors. It's a working theory active in psychiatry and therapy. Environmental factors is kind of what I'm looking at. Russia, their main exports are mined materials. A lot of that is gas. Russia's a huge gas export. That's a big reason that we weren't able to, be super aggressive with them, because we need gas, and people get mad when gas prices rise and no president wants to be in charge of that. So it's either the Middle East or Russia, which not great.
Both of those don't tend to end well.
Not the best options.
And not the best track records.
Super not great. So if I was a country that had a president with a who's been around since the Cold War, mind you, Vladimir Putin was only in his 40s during the Cold War. So that is a country with a longer memory.
How old is he?
I don't remember, but I looked it up and he was in his 40s. So I think it's like 70 or 80 or some shit. I don't know. But so he's alive. He was active. He has memory of that. America has a short memory because we change our president every 4 years. We move on real fast.
Right.
Russia does not move on fast. They have the same leader since like
70. He's exactly 70.
He is 70 now, because the Cold War was about what, 30 years ago? More? So he was like, what, maybe in his 30s during the Cold War. Either way, he was, a young man. He wasn't like a child.
Yeah.
So he has memory of all of this. He's not exactly going to let shit go like America let shit go because we forgot, because we don't have the person that was even around or involved in government during that time.
Yeah, none of them. Like
exactly. Not a long lifespan. So if I was a country,
Bernie's been around forever.
Bernie is old as time, and I wish he was there, but he would have remembered. But
right.
So if I was a country that had issues with America, so to speak, which I totally understand why people have issues with America. I'm nowhere close to a patriot.
Oh god, no.
And I wanted to destabilize a populace, and I wanted to destabilize a government. What's easier, a big directed strike, or the fact that I can mine minerals and people walk around with their phones every day, and all these phones get replaced every couple of years, and thus need rare minerals that need to be mined to make chips, to make all this shit. And I spent the 70s developing sonic weaponry to slowly destabilize people's brains. And in the past few fucking years, everyone's losing their goddamn minds. I'm not saying mental health is not real. It definitely is.
Definitely
I'm saying I'm not entirely sure that Russia doesn't have like some ability to put shit into phones, chemicals. I don't fucking know. They export gas. It could be in the fucking gas. It drives people fucking insane.
Yeah.
So part of me thinks Russia's driving people insane, but I'm only mildly invested in this. I just think about it really often, and I'm like, man, people hear different frequencies, and there has been a huge rise in anxiety, depression, mental health crises in America.
I have a lot of the scientific notes on here about like it can make you feel fear, anxiety, like
exactly, and to the point where
unease in general.
Psychiatrists and therapists to this fucking day are like, what's with the huge rise? Maybe it's like environmental, socioeconomic factors, but I'm like, bro, what if there's literal weaponry? Because Russia's never been able to have a direct war with America.
No.
It's always been valence wars through other people.
Yeah.
Russia really is big on exporting minerals and chemicals directly to China. And where do we get all of our phones?
China.
So if I had a sonic weapon that I wanted to put in the hands of everyone in a nation that I wanted to destabilize,
I would pick mine
that
up,
emitted a sound, and needed to stay charged and was regularly used to the point where the people of that nation would riot if they were taken away. What would I do with that?
That is definitely a very, very sound logic.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Huh.
So yeah, think about that.
Yeah.
That's my personal conspiracy theory about Russia.
All right. And so.
Oh, I think I moved it. There we go. So yeah, that's my little private personal Russian conspiracy theory that I've been developing over the last like 4 years.
Nice. Well, there is definitely some scientific backing to this theory, as sound waves can affect people in different ways. Some studies have shown that at high intensities, infrasonic sounds can have extraoral bioeffects, including nausea, headaches, and dizziness. And, of course, there's the famed brown note.
Oh my god,
for those of us
of shit I would have caused in high school.
For those of us who remember it from South Park. Which is a note that supposedly makes a person void their bowels after being exposed to it for a long enough time. Though several tests, including an episode of Mythbusters, have proven that the most the sound can cause is nausea and discomfort.
Dude, but imagine if that were if it could actually make you shit yourself.
Especially like they did it in the episode where it was like they all played it on like the recorders or whatever at the same time.
And it was like on camera.
Yeah, and it was like the whole like country did it or whatever. Yeah.
But yeah, like I was speaking of like random sources, so I was looking up stuff and I found it's from The Guardian. I wish it wasn't from The Guardian. But it was talking about like microwave weapons and Havana syndrome and shit.
Oh.
And how it was like triggering that and all that shit, and how China was involved in like developing portable transmitters. So like it's a thing.
Wait, prototype in 2004.
Right? I told you.
Isn't that when cell phones really started?
No. I'm not saying it started with cell phones.
No, I'm just saying. Isn't that when cell phones really also started being like a big thing? No.
Well, and like we have 2-year plans that we need to renew. And I'm like, I'm not saying like our government's in on it, but I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah. Codenamed Medusa.
But like Russia and America have been having valence wars for quite a while, and in addition to that, Russia developed this like supersonic missile that can go like 27 times the speed of sound.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay,
that's
if you're
not
measuring
concerning at all.
Yeah, I'm like, if you're measuring things by the speed of sound, are you sound focused? Like how much I'm like really into sonic shit because like sound can you ever heard like just like a really high pitched noise that drives you fucking insane?
Yeah.
Imagine if you couldn't hear it and you were still getting driven fucking insane and you didn't know why. because it was just out of your range of hearing.
Yeah.
It was just enough to just grate you.
Yeah.
And now we have people fucking snapping at everybody for no goddamn fucking Karens trashing fucking displays because they're told they don't have that size in something. I'm like, I'm not saying that like white people haven't always been massively entitled. As a fully painted white person right now, I'm like, I'm part Hispanic, but I'm very white too. Like, I'm not saying white entitlement doesn't exist. It very much does. But like, I feel like there was a certain level of tolerance of, oh, that's not available. I guess I'll try later. Back when I was younger, like pre 2004, like middle school level, not even high school level. That's, I feel like when people, that might be me. When high school's when it went wrong, guys. But yeah, so I'm just like, if they're developing sonic weaponry, if they're developing missiles that can go 27 times the speed of sound, if they're working with China to develop portable microwaves that can like literally cause Havana syndrome that like makes people go insane, why wouldn't they use it on a larger populace of a country that they're against?
Yeah.
Especially if you're a leader like Putin, who literally like encourages lynch mobs against gay people and is like a fucking scorched earth, will kill his own people just to fuck with you harder.
Yeah.
Why would he go, oh no, that's too far?
No, he wouldn't.
So if it's available and it's there and we have evidence that it's already in use, why wouldn't it be used in a broader scale? And wouldn't our government have a vested interest in not telling us about that because it would trigger more hysteria and more paranoia and more anxiety and more stress, or people could even use that to excuse their own crimes and go, well, it's not me, it's the Havana syndrome, it's not my fault,
the Russians made me do it,
it's the Russians that made me do it. So like vested interest in it not being public, right? So yeah, I'm not big on a lot of conspiracy theories because a lot come back to like anti-Semitism and like homophobia and like just, but that one is like Russia being shady. I stand by it. As with family members that are Russian, they will literally talk shit to each other's faces and not feel bad about it. I'm like, cold as hell.
I was gonna say, anywhere that you live that's that cold, you have to fucking be a hard motherfucker.
Yeah, you gotta be, and the culture around Russia has developed to be like a strength, which honestly, the culture in Russia is crazy, and that might be a great segue.
I actually have a decent amount of listeners in Russia. Apparently.
Oh yeah?
Well, I did.
I'm sorry. I'm going to talk a lot of shit.
I did an episode on Anatoly Moskvin. He was the guy that would dig up bodies and like preserve them into dolls and like keep them in his house. So
as you do.
Yeah, I mean, why not? You know,
I mean, like Tuesdays.
He thought of them as his children because he had always wanted kids.
Dude, there was a lady in South America that has like these like human realistic dolls, but they're zombies, and she's like, they're all my polyamorous lovers.
Oh god,
but they're children and zombies and dolls.
All right.
I mean, what else is gonna happen when you get like bacon that's you've got enough electricity running through to have like a sentient human experience? That's all a human brain is. Some of them are gonna be weird.
Yeah, fair point.
We're just electrical bacon.
Electrical bacon, I love that.
That's our brains.
That's a good
bacon.
band name,
right? Electrical bacon.
Yeah. I feel like that would be Kevin Bacon's band name.
Yeah, I could see that.
Electrical Bacon.
Yeah, and it would be like a very techno band.
Or like one of those like jam bands that just never really ends a song and just keeps playing for 45 minutes.
Jam dad band.
Oh god, no. What have we created?
Oh, terrible. Kevin Bacon, don't listen. Don't do it. It's a bad idea.
Kevin Bacon, if you're listening, don't do it.
It's a bad idea. I discourage you. Do it.
The devil's telling you to do it. I mean,
I didn't say that. I said that. Do it.
All right. So as we mentioned, other studies have suggested that infrasound may cause feelings of awe or fear in humans. It has also been suggested that since it is not consciously perceived, it may make people feel vaguely that odd or supernatural events are taking place. There was actually this one guy who did a whole study because like he was working at some warehouse or something or someplace, and there was like he saw what he thought was a ghost. And then like he did a bunch of research and he found out that one of the machines there was emitting this sound, this frequency. And so then he was like, well, what if these frequencies can cause people to perceive ghosts or like see supernatural events?
I like the double-natured, like the scientific perspective and the supernatural perspective of the same thing, because the scientific perspective says you're exposed to a sound wave that is destabilizing your ability to perceive your environment. And the metaphysical explanation is, no, I'm exposed to a sound wave that is increasing my ability to perceive my physical environment.
Or my metaphysical environment.
Metaphysical environment. So now I can perceive things that are there
that you would not normally
that
see.
I couldn't normally. So it comes back to belief.
That's
even
like,
with all the scientific info, still back to belief.
Have you seen the thing, like the videos of people that have Teslas and go into cemeteries? And because your Tesla shows you if like people are around your car, right? Like if you're like parked or like driving on a street, it shows like people, like, you know, like that are. So if you go into a cemetery and you park your Tesla and turn that feature on, it just starts showing people everywhere, even though there's nobody around your car.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So it's like the waves, like the frequency waves that your Tesla sends out is able to perceive what is possibly ghosts.
Bro, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So
I would want a Tesla just for that.
So I'm like crazy into like occult, and I mean, not like crazy into it. I'm like, I know a lot of people that are more into it than I am, but I'm interested in like occult and cult and like religious studies, because I grew up very agnostic because I was exposed to so many religions. I was like, these all feel like stories, and I would like evidence.
Yeah.
So I chase.
Prove it.
Yeah, fucking prove it.
Yeah.
Nut up or shut up. Like, ghosts. Nut up or shut up, ghosts.
Come on,
fight me.
Where you at?
No, okay, so
it's like Zach Bagans.
Side story. I recently toured a murder house.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so and I went into it with the same gusto. Because like so a year ago in South Sacramento there was this terrible tragedy that I was not aware of until after I toured the murder house. I wasn't
aware of until you told me about it.
Right? So. Where this man had been married to this woman for decades. They were in their, I think, 60s. And he had like a mental breakdown of some sort. I'm not sure what it was triggered by. But he...
Russian sound waves.
Russian sound waves. It was the Russians. He shot his wife and then called the cops to try to be like, hey, I shot her. And she's still alive. You should come and like try to save her before I like actually kill her. And by the time they got there, he had shot her another 5 times and, you know, offed himself. My wife and I were touring houses, just looking for a place to live, guys. Just trying to be people, having a cute little queer house, be first time homeowners. And we're like, hey, there's this house. It's all boarded up. It's relatively cheap. Let's check it out. We've gotten lucky. And I walk in and the vibes, y'all. Like the vibes, y'all. They were wrong. I walked in and I was like, this is a murder house. I didn't stop because I'm definitely like, I'm not a girl, but like I was the white girl in the horror movie. I was like, let's look at it. I ran in. I didn't drop my keys, but I ran in.
Noise. I'm gonna go check it out.
What is it? Does someone need help? Hello? Is someone here? Let me make noise and alert everyone where I am. Damn it. Anyway, so I go in and I was like, windows are boarded up. It already is kind of spooky in here, no matter how many lights you turn on. We turn on lights. There's almost no overhead lights. It's all lamps plugged in.
Okay.
And none of the lamps are plugged in. Okay. So we have to find them and plug them in. And the security alarm goes off because no one mentioned that there was a security alarm. Bro, it was. So we're like plugging shit in. I go to the hallway and turn on the light, which is actually connected to a bulb. And one lone bulb at the end of like a hallway that had to be at least like 3 yards long turns on and emits this orangey yellow dull light.
I'm pretty sure I've seen this movie.
Right? And I run down. I'm like, this is amazing. Let me look at it. No fear. Because again, agnostic, I'm looking for evidence. Nut up or shut up. Yeah. And I walk into the master bedroom and there's like worn paths in the carpet where you can see like underneath the carpet. Yeah. And it's like this like kind of dingy shag. And then I go into the bathroom and it's just like, you know, a murderer took a shit in that room. Like I can't describe it better than that. I was like, a murderer pooped here. This is where a murderer spent his time thinking about his eventual murderers,
plotting them out while he's plotting them out.
literally.
Oh,
And I was like, it's vaguely dirty. There's one of those little slidey compartments underneath the mirror that's vaguely dirty, where it looked like you would keep severed fingers or some shit. I'm like, bro, murderer poop house. Like, so I'm walking through just making jokes about murder house, asking how bad would it be if we did a haunted house that Halloween. I'm like, is that in bad taste? And as we're walking out, the neighbor comes out and it's like, oh, so you didn't hear? And she tells us the whole story about how she had walked in and yelled at the guy for yelling at her daughter. And that was like a week before he killed his wife. And how terrible. And the dude's name was Stan. And I was like, bruh, fucking Stan.
Dear Slim.
Right? Dude, my thoughts exactly. I'm like, why is Stan the crazy motherfucker name? Like, no shit on South Park, but I feel like Stan's not going to grow up to be a healthily adjusted individual.
None of
He's
them
already
are.
drinking.
None of them are, though.
So we went on a tour of this fucking murder house and then heard the story after we left. And all I wanted to do was buy the house. Like, I wanted the house. I'm like, let me move into the murder house. I have friends with Ouija boards and I have friends with Sage. Let's fuck it up. I am so interested.
Fuck around and find out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and I didn't. The only thing is, oh, wait, we also went into the garage and there was this collection of like baby dolls that were vaguely dirty.
Oh, no.
It was great. One of the kids that we had brought with us, because we brought children, as you do to a murder house.
To a murder house, of course.
We thought we were just touring houses. They were just gonna be bored at home. And they were like, can we keep one of these dolls? And we're like, don't take one of the dolls from the murder house.
No, you definitely don't take the doll from the murder
yeah,
house.
and
that's how you get ghosts in your
dude,
house.
okay, I kind of wanted to let them, but then the neighbor was like, oh no, they're gonna come back and pick it up. And I was like, sure they are, lady. Sure they are.
Who's gonna come back and pick it up?
The ghosts. Or the Russians.
Yes.
But yeah, so I went on a tour of that murder house and I want it so bad. You have no idea how bad I want to start a TikTok channel of flipping murder houses.
That's genius. Actually.
Like,
yeah.
You got to have a better name for it. But
Yeah,
like,
no, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, just something about house flipping murder houses. Be like, and this is where she died, and it's a terrible thing, but the cabinets are still functional.
From murders to mansions.
Yeah, right. Something that
I've always prided myself on having a brain for like marketing and
right.
like.
I mean, I came up with my own drag name. Kind of with help from someone else, but I come up with a lot of drag names. I've named half my kids, and all of them are puns.
Nice.
There's like Wayne Kerr, Justin Timbersnake, Chico
God.
Sticks.
Yes.
So that was his name. He came up with that. There's a lot of fun names out there. I did name a king across the country because I posted like free drag name, Craigslist.
Oh my God.
And they were like, can I take it? I'm like, yours. And then someone else wanted Neopets.
Oh my God.
Deep
I remember
cuts.
that. Oh my God. So apparently, actually, I just saw some random ass. My phone's always giving me these like random ass article recommendations. And I'm like, where are you getting this idea that I actually like this shit from? But one of them was about Neopets. And apparently, like, I don't know. I guess the company got bought by some other company and they're like revamping the whole thing and trying to make it a thing again. And like the resurgence of Neopets. And I'm like, oh God.
I mean, I'm not going to say they can't do it. They could totally do it.
I mean, there is a lot of like 90s nostalgia coming back now.
That. Like, there's a lot of people that are trying to relive some shit.
I mean, I've been stuck in the 90s the entire time.
Right.
So.
The music scene has not developed. Though, I'd say early 2000s.
Early 2000s definitely had the better music.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Like, all the emo scene kids.
90s kind of like laid the groundwork. Yeah.
Weird little accent.
Yeah.
Pop punk accents are weird. I don't know where it comes from, but it's weird.
Right. And then they start talking, they have no accent whatsoever.
Yeah.
But when they're singing, they do.
And then when they're singing,
it's the opposite of Ozzy.
Weird.
It's like you can understand every word he's saying when he's singing, but then the second he stops, he's like, "Oh yes, some English
Sharon!
Sharon!" Yeah.
Every fucking time.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah. Where were we?
We had just wrapped up talking about my personal conspiracy
Oh,
theory.
yes. And then we mentioned
and
the
then
ghosties.
the murder house,
Yes, and then
which
the murder
is
house.
fun because ghosts.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think like that has nothing to do with Russia. That's just a weird house I looked at.
Unless he went crazy because
of the Russians.
The Russians.
If I'm gonna blame the Russian cell phones.
Sorry, Russians.
Sorry, Russia. I mean, I love you, but I don't.
Yeah, there's a little bit of bad blood right now because of the whole Ukraine thing.
Well, and also if you liked gay people more, maybe I'd like you more.
Put a rainbow up somewhere.
Right? Just put a flag up and don't kill people or something. Just the little things.
Oh my God.
But a lot of the Russian oppression and shit does go back to religious reform.
I mean, everything ends up going back to religion.
Religion bullshit. Yeah, but so there was a massive religious reform that was done. I mean, there have been a couple religious reforms done throughout Russia where they've tried to oppress even different sects of Christianity. So think England, where they were you're Protestant, not Catholic. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Russia's still there.
Okay.
Where different sects of Christianity have actually been developed in Russia. A lot of them, which gets back to kind of the main one, which I have to look up how it's spelled. So even pre-Vissarion. So I know this episode's about Vissarion, but we got to lay some groundwork before we get to Vissarion. Pre-Vissarion, there was a group called the Skoptsy. And I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Skoptsy, Skoptsy. It's the plural of skopet, which means eunuch, or castrate, means castrate. So that was a sect of the spiritual Christianity movement in Russia. So there was this whole spiritual Christianity where they got really into this Christian spirituality, really hardcore. And this sect developed that believed that the original mark of Cain, so the original first sin, even though I know first sin was Eve, but they were also connecting it to the killing of the brother, those original sins, were that the mark of Cain was having genitalia at all. So within Mormon
basically
religions,
they wanted everybody to be a Barbie and a Ken doll.
Kinda, yeah, Barbie,
anatomically
Greta Gerwig, let's have fun.
No
#no genitals. Ken can have all the genitals. So they believed that having genitals at all were the mark of original sin, and removing those things, which were also things that when Adam and Eve were cast out of the garden, that was how they they understood their shame was seeing their genitals, so those are marks of original sin. So the only way to clear yourself of original sin is to castrate. So there's what's called a first seal and a second seal. The first seal involved the removal of testicles. We're just gonna rip that band-aid off.
Right.
And the second seal was full emasculation. There was also a version for female assigned people, which was removal of nipples and or breast, depending on level of seal, and female castration as well, which was removal of labia minora and clitoris. So there are a lot of different religious sects around the world that practice castration. I'm not a fan. I'm not super a fan of what we do to babies here.
Oh, circumcision.
Circumcision. I was not castration. The other one. The other C word. Not a huge fan of circumcision. I think
little
just
snippy.
teach your kids to clean their dicks, man. It's not that hard. And we don't need to mutilate babies because you don't want to do your job. You're eliminating 3 or 4 different parts of the penis that are kind of necessary. So that's a whole other episode. I have I need to guest on a sex positive podcast in the same costume.
Oh my God,
showing up as Satan being so this is why we need fully intact people. And please use condoms. And practice consent and test.
I mean, honestly, it wouldn't be that far off because that's why I have my Satanic Temple membership
Right?
certificate.
Oh my
here.
god, I pissed off one of my
well,
coworkers talking about the Satanic Temple.
After the whole abortion thing, and then we found out that the Satanic Temple was actively fighting against it and
Declared it a religious practice.
Declared it a religious practice. And so as soon as we heard that, we're like, fuck that, we're signing up.
Love that. Well, and a lot of people let me tell you about the joys of the Satanic Temple. Let me preach.
The more you know.
I was raised Catholic, and let me tell you how Satan has helped me. No, the Satanic Temple. There's Luciferianism, and then there's the Satanic Temple. Luciferianism is like a Satan-focused religion. There's a lot more nuance to it, but that's as far as I'm going to get into it. The Satanic Temple is largely a religious advocacy group or an anti-religious advocacy group. So
and
religious
very
freedom.
politically involved.
Yeah, very politically involved. Whenever religion is being used to justify something, they kind of jump in and go, well, my religion says the opposite. Freedom of religion, stop oppressing people.
Or it's like,
yours.
So
it's
religions
great.
can do this? Cool, then we're going to do this. And then everybody goes, well, you guys can't do this. And it's like, so why not?
Yeah, so it's like, they remind me of like a modern day jester. That does the absurd in order to call attention to the absurd that already exists.
Yeah.
So I love the Satanic Temple. Not, I'm not going to say that I know everything about them and everyone's great, but the general politics and social activism behind the Satanic Temple, love it to pieces. And I like being Satan. And that leads to there are a lot of harmful, detrimental effects of Christianity socially. I'm not the first person to say that. We know that. We have transphobia, homophobia, racism.
Oh, God, yeah.
Fucking Mormonism thinks the mark of Cain is just being black. And that. So there's a lot of fucked up, religious, problematic bullshit.
And I mean, it literally has gone centuries and centuries and centuries. Like the fucking, what was it? The Crusades and there's holy wars, and all of these wars have been fought in the name of God. And
how many people Satan killed? Maybe 2 or 3. Maybe.
Right, maybe.
And even then, it was kind of their fault.
They had it coming.
They did. They had it coming.
Oh my God, yes.
So, but yeah, the harm that Christianity does even goes back to what I was talking to with the Scopsy. People who are and I totally recognize the irony as a trans person who has chopped their titties off, saying that oh my God, they're chopping titties off. But there's a difference between doing a surgery because you want to do it for euphoria and feeling safe in your body versus someone is saying
telling you have to do it.
You are a sin and going to hell unless you mutilate your body, unless you cut off parts that you feel attached to because those parts of you are evil. I didn't cut off my chest because I thought it was evil. It fucked up my back. And also it is so much easier to be a chick with no titties than a boy with titties. So just functionally, I'd rather not wear my binder all the time. I like big old ones. No thanks. But so the Scopsy formed as part of this spiritual Christianity movement in Russia. And castration was big. It started, look at my notes because I have notes. It started in the late 18th century. Its peak popularity was the early 20th century, and small groups have persevered into the 21st century. So this isn't an ancient thing. This is relatively recent. And the government did try to, cut it out, which I understand why you would want to. Okay, that's terrible. Cut it out. It's probably not great for castrates. The government.
God, I didn't even think about that.
The government tried to put a stop to the shenanigans.
Yeah.
They tried, but the way they tried to intercept was unfortunately super homophobic. They would take the male castrates and dress them in women's clothing and fool's caps and parade them through town and shame them, which unfortunately is just going to reinforce the indoctrination, saying the people with the genitals are clearly genital obsessed and are going to hurt you and parade you through town, much like Jesus was paraded through town before the crucifixion. It's only going to reinforce the cult behaviors. The best thing for reaching out to people in cults is to reach out to them with education, not shame. And I feel like I'm an after school special right now, but yeah,
they do have an after school program,
after school Satan club. But yeah, so I
swear this episode is not sponsored by the Satanic Temple.
It's so not, but I am Satan. And if someone's going to make me a temple, thank you. But yeah, like, so at their height they had up to like 1 million members.
Wow. Okay.
And they called themselves like the White Doves because they thought they were like pure and clean and
Mm.
like free of sin. So that's like kind of laying the groundwork for what Vissarion stepped into.
Yeah.
We already had a country rife with homophobia, rife with religious propaganda, rife with religious cults, people that were, willing to castrate and go to very large extremes, up to 1 million people in Russia. I don't know their population right now, but like that's still a lot of
Probably a
fucking
pretty big
people.
population.
But 1 million people willing to like castrate to like be part of.
Yeah, that's insane. Because like I think Vissarion and
Mhm.
like the Church of the Last Testament only got up to like 10,000 in like their height, right?
Yeah, and this
So
had
like
like 1
10,000
million
people is like a lot of people, but 1 million people
Yeah, and
that are
part
all
of his
just like,
castration ceremony, they would even like not use anesthesia. They would just have
oh
people around
no.
them chanting "Christ is risen" while they like cut off. While elders, not even like surgeons, they were like elders in the community. Trigger warning.
Hey Doug, come here. It's your turn.
Oh, no. Come here, baby. It's your
He's like
turn to
sharpening
join
his
the
knife,
church.
and he's like, "All right, I'll be over in a second."
The Lord wants it for you.
Oh god.
It'd have to be in a Russian accent though. The Lord
yeah.
wants it for you. Vlad, it's your turn.
Oh yeah. It wouldn't be Doug. My bad.
It'd be Vlad. But yeah, so like the founder was like, exiled and arrested a whole bunch of different times. They did like a bunch of like issues. Most of them disappeared by the 1970s, which was probably good. But like there's evidence that there's still some practicing like modern. So that's like the country that Vissarion is coming into. Yeah. So when we want to think about cults, we don't want to think about them as like, oh, they arose out of normal suburban white cis ideology. They come out of largely out of populations that are really looking for help, that are looking for an answer to anything that will help their suffering. So when you're in a place like Russia, a country that has practiced scorched earth politics, and it withdrawing massive amounts of wealth from their people, from their land, without a lot of like care for the people, and I fully acknowledge the irony being an American saying all these things. Agreed. So like living in that place and being, freezing and not being able to eat half the time, like there are certain communities that feel the need toward cults, which is also why certain cults have, succeeded in America, because we have a lot of communities looking for help and an answer and anything.
I mean, that's what Jim Jones did, is he took advantage of like marginalized communities and went in and was like, oh, I'm here to help you and like do so much good for your community. But then give me all of your money, sign your life over to me, and then let's go drink some Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Actually, Flavor Aid, my bad.
Flavor Aid, let's be.
Did that episode.
But yeah, so like the answer to most cult situations is education and compassion. And the answer to most cult situations that's actually happened is like criminalization and force. Which is not super helpful. But when violence is happening, there's sometimes it escalates to a point where you don't know what to do. I have to pee again. Yeah,
me too.
Cool.
All right, we're gonna take a little break. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
Go. All right, so the lemon Urkel. We have returned, by the way.
Thank you for that brief intermission.
Yes, so brief. No one will ever know.
Coming back and re-dabbing.
Right. Yeah, so I figure before we get into the Vissarion,
into our main topic.
Yeah. This guy is interesting. Anybody that like claims to be the second coming of Jesus or any kind of like religious, like, I am the prophet of this, and it's just like, okay, buddy, you're a cult leader.
It's like, okay, not only are you like a cult leader, like abusing people's trust, you are also kind of basic, not super creative.
Right,
like you had to go with a previously established like hierarchy. You couldn't think of your own thing.
Right. Well, and it's like,
I mean, the
L. Ron fucking
whole
Hubbard.
fucking Nibiru thing was a bit interesting, but
Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard came up with an entire fucking religion where it was like
yeah,
alien
aliens
spirits and
Xenu
fucking
and shit.
Xenu and fucking Thetans and shit. Like he
Yeah.
came up with the whole
least a little
fucking
interesting.
infrastructure and shit. It's like, bro, come on, get creative. Don't just be like, I am the second coming of Jesus Christ. Technically, according to how many people have claimed to be the second coming of Jesus Christ, you're more like the 52nd coming of Jesus Christ.
Fucking right.
You know, that guy just keeps coming all over the place.
Left and right. And they say Satan's the disturbed one. He's the guy
Honestly,
coming left and right.
honestly, if you think about it, Jesus is just a guy with daddy issues. Like, serious fucking daddy issues.
Motherfucker is trying to prove that he's a better person than everyone else to his daddy, while Satan loves you for who you are, kids.
Right. You know.
What's great is I'm going to do a show as Satan where I'm going to use a song called Daddy Issues by The Neighborhood.
Oh my god.
There's a part during the song where, as Satan, I'm just going to go up to a random audience member. It's like, and baby girl, if you were my little girl, you know what? You know I'd do whatever I could do. I'd run away and hide with you. I know that you've got daddy issues. I do too.
Oh shit.
As fucking Satan. That's my shit.
Yes.
The poetry of it is lovely.
Oh my god, yes.
And then I'm gonna be gay Satan. It's gonna be great. And I'm opening up the show as Jesus while making out with a Judas. It's gonna be the blasphemy alone is kind of what I live for.
Oh my god,
And this is at a time that I was protested last month, so I mean, look my taint. This is gonna be interesting.
it can only go up from
I'm
there.
not shy.
No. But I've always kind of thought about, like, what if you opened up a pizza place called Jesus Christ? And
Or like a Mexican place called Cheese and Rice.
right, but like I always thought about, like, because you could have a cross-shaped pizza. You could be like, "Welcome to Jesus Christ, home of the crucifixion. It's blasphemously delicious." You know, like, there's so many marketing opportunities there.
There's probably so many puns with toppings too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, I wish I could. You know, given time, if I weren't high and drinking, I would come up with better puns. And now I'm just thinking, how do you turn seraphim into a pizza pun? Huh.
Huh.
Dude, it's rough. It's starting on advanced. Don't even waste your time with it. Angelic kind of sounds like garlic. I don't know.
Oh my god, you could have like some kind of like a pizza roll thing called the Holy Roller.
Holy roll. I mean, if you get the whole everyone that works there to act mega Italian, you can just go with the whole Vatican theme and you're fine.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Have the baker be dressed as the Pope. And then have wine and tiny little circular breadsticks. And the Pope will come out and feed them to you.
Right. Drink of me, for this is my blood.
Which, like, blood cult, really.
Seriously,
Giving
it's
nature
like
blood cult vibes.
well, and it's funny too because then you like think about how it really does all trace back to like pagan and like all of these.
Yeah, well, the only
all
way
of these like older religions, it all goes back to the same shit, and it's like so the Christians just came in and were like, oh, we're turning it into a religious ceremony of like, oh, you know, it's a rite, it's a passage where it's like,
they basically came into the pagan dance hall and said, well, you're doing this all for Jesus now.
Yeah.
In order to stay relevant.
Well, and God.
it's like Christianity as a religion, not as its like base in its text.
Yeah.
But the way it's operated through history is like the perfect capitalist.
Yeah.
They've just found whatever is popular and said, that is ours too. That's us too. No, that's for Jesus. You're doing that? Well, you're doing that for Jesus.
Right.
So if you can capitalize on whatever's popular and consistently relate it back to yourself, you're always relevant.
Yeah.
So capitalism and Christianity are like, they're like this.
They're
Yeah, Christianity without capitalism would not come to fruition. And capitalism without Christianity would not be able to moralize wealth and demoralize poverty.
Which is funny
and
because
thus say,
they try
if you're
to
poor,
claim,
you deserve it.
they
and
try
if
to
you're
claim
wealthy,
the
you deserve
separation of church and state, but there's no such thing.
There
It's
is-
on our currency.
No, in God we trust. It's on our fucking Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
There's so much.
It's indoctrinating.
It's freedom of religion, as long as you agree with me.
As long as it's our religion.
Yeah, as long as your freedoms, you're using them to exercise the same practices I approve of.
Yeah.
Your freedom extends as far as my approval does. Which is great, because I left the church when I was like 8.
Yeah.
I was raised in fairly moderate Christianity. Later I found out the church that I went to is listed in a book of churches that abuse power, which is great. After I left, we found out the pastor's 20-something-year-old son was having an affair with a 13-year-old girl, which is great. Not great. That's
not
sarcastic, please. So there was a lot of problems in that church. It was really fucked up. But when I was around 8, I started asking questions that the pastor brought my mother in because it was showing a crisis of faith. Because I was asking questions that he didn't really have answers for. And my mom, who's an amazing person, who was largely Christian for my dad, said, well, aren't you the person that's supposed to be able to answer those? So he was going to spank me, because we were one of those church schools that was you can spank the kids if they're asking too many questions about Jesus.
Why you asking all them questions?
Don't you have faith in Jesus?
Oh,
you need
God.
to shut up and have faith. And date my son. No. But so my mom was always a great advocate for me as a queer person, as a lacking a faith person. Even though she has faith, she's like, I do whatever you want to do. I believe in you. So she said, if you don't want to go to church, if you don't feel called to go there, you don't have to go.
Yes.
And that just wasn't my thing. So I left church when I was 8, because I was like, there's some really obvious questions that you guys can't answer here, that are just tripping me up. And if me at 8 can stump you, maybe this isn't the answer to the universe.
Right. And I've always questioned it too, because my grandma, she tried very hard to kind of get our family on board with the whole Christianity thing. And none of us really bought it except her, me, my sibling, and then my mom. We were always kind of the outcasts on that end. But my grandma tried very hard, made me go to youth group, sent me on this men's retreat, and I'm the youngest kid there, and I'm just do you really think this is wise, sending me on a men's retreat with a bunch of people I don't know in some random place in the middle of the woods?
Just because they said they love Jesus too.
Right.
So you don't. It's weird the amount that people of faith, and this isn't unique to Christianity, but it happens a lot in Christianity, believe that if you also claim to be a person of faith, you must have good intentions, you must be positive, you must be trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
So someone, dressed like me, who I have a degree in education, specifically with working with children with disabilities, and working with, because I got my major in literary theory and my minor in education, with a focus on at-risk students, neurodivergent students, disabled students, just the other category.
Right.
Because, just I wanted to help that group. And teaching felt like my thing. And I still love teaching, but I have vocal nodules, so I can't do whole classrooms anymore.
Yeah.
But I have a full ass degree from UC Davis. Have worked with kids for a decade. Great with kids. Have marked improvements in all of my students. And yet most parents would rather see their kids with a church-going person they don't know than someone like me. Which I find hilarious. Because I'm someone who is basically more fun than you, that has embraced Halloween all year. Because I realize that in life you can be anything you want to be, so why the fuck would you ever want to be basic? And if you would get onto a video game and customize your character to have horns and a cape and fucking pauldrons, why wouldn't you take advantage of that in your day-to-day life?
Right.
Like, if that's what makes you feel powerful, why wouldn't you wear what
Right.
makes you powerful and fun?
Embrace it.
Yeah,
Well,
like
and-
just embrace an aesthetic, have fun with it.
Yeah.
I've never complied to one aesthetic. I would go from boho to goth punk very quickly throughout high school.
Yeah.
It was my shit.
Yeah.
So like, because I've never complied with religion, I don't understand why people compare aesthetics to morality.
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of a nice lead into Vissarion.
It definitely
Because
is.
a lot of his morality was dependent on his aesthetic. He modeled himself to look like
Jesus.
the second coming of Jesus.
He literally had like
white Jesus. He modeled himself to look like white Jesus.
Well, of course, right.
Which modern day white Jesus is an aggregate after the Council of something with Charlemagne, and not Constantine, Charlemagne, where they had that whole where they decided which books they were keeping in the Bible and basically rewrote the Bible.
Right.
And Charlemagne was in charge of that.
Which just proves that the whole book is
it's a fiction. And honestly, if you take it as a fiction, like Aesop's Fables, that has interesting stories that are works of fiction that you can glean some truths from.
You can learn
it's just as good as any other religious text. With pitfalls of texts that don't age well, and valorizing things that still work. So I'm not going to be like, a book is evil, because a book's not evil. People can be evil.
It's the way people use
page.
It's the way people twist it and use it for their means and their personal.
It's how power and corruption work for personal gain.
Exactly.
And that's where evil lies. And I think Vissarion was a big part of that. Now, so we talked already about the Scopsy.
Yes.
Which I'm probably pronouncing wrong.
I mispronounce things on this podcast. It's a running theme. I'll sit there and bounce back and forth and try to figure it out, and then I'm like, fuck it, we're moving on.
Yeah, the Scopsy.
Yeah.
So the Scopsy laid kind of a groundwork for religious Christian fundamentalism and with some, interesting spin-offs, including castration and all these things. Vissarion, whose real name was Sergei.
Yeah, it was Sergei Anatolievich Torop.
I wasn't even going to try that. I was like, Sergei.
I'm getting better.
Do that again.
Sergei Anatolievich Torop. I'm getting better with the Russian pronunciations. Like I said, I did the Anatoly Moskvin one, and there was a lot of shit in there.
Yeah.
And then
all the vowels.
Red for Filth, and I did Elizabeth Bathory, and there's a bunch of Hungarian names.
Lady Bathory is lovely. Oh my god, that's a whole. You've already done that. So.
Yeah.
But Vissarion, formerly Sergei, it claimed to be, second coming of Jesus. And low key, the thing that gave me the most mental health episode in a country that does not care about mental health vibes is the fact that he wrote fucking 18 volumes of a Last Testament.
Yeah.
I was like, you wrote a whole ass manifesto? And everyone's like, yep, that's Jesus. I'm like, you realize Jesus didn't even write the original Bible, right?
No, exactly. It was written by men, but
it's one of those the best Christians are atheists because they've actually read the Bible. I'm like, none of the Bible is written by Jesus, and all these people are like, Vissarion is the next Jesus, and he wrote 18. I'm like, Jesus didn't write his own shit. That's already going against Jesus canon.
Himself. Yeah,
we're going against canon.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah.
But he wrote fucking 18 volumes of a Last Testament.
It had all of the rules and his commandments basically.
Yeah,
and
the big one that got him in trouble was the medical commandment.
Yeah.
So he believed that that any medical malady was a sign of a lack of faith, a problem in your spiritual body, and that you needed to pray for it, and you were forbidden from seeking medical attention. And because of that, several adults and children died.
Yeah, well, and that's when they started to look into.
Yeah, that's what got him in trouble,
because
he wrote all these fucking commandments. Yeah.
It's actually funny. So apparently Vissarion, I found the translation of the name.
Yeah.
It means he who gives new life or life-giving. So he's really
humble.
Yeah, exactly. Super humble brag. He's just like, I am giving you all life
by killing you and denying you medical attention.
Right, or education. He cut them off from education
which
too for a while.
is a huge marker of fascism or abusive relationships on a microcosm, fascism on a macrocosm. They try to like remove you from education or anything that can question their authority. If you keep them
uneducated and isolated, you can control
and
them
afraid.
10 times. Oh, yes.
And afraid.
Yeah, but you
uneducated,
can control them 10 times
isolated,
easier.
and afraid. Because like, if we give some empathy to because I think, again, the big part of helping cult followers remove themselves from cults is empathy. If we give some empathy to them, think about like yourself. If you were in a space where you felt you didn't know anything, you didn't understand anything, you're cut off from education, you're cut off from any support, you're cut off from anything,
Basic
and now
medical care.
And you're afraid.
Yeah.
And there's a person
because he's telling you the world's gonna end.
Yeah, because like fucking Nibiru. Okay, so motherfucker, this is where it gets a little Scientology-esque. It's like, but not even like as developed as Scientology, because it's not like Scientology is great, but like at least it has a through line and a kind of fleshed out plot.
And I mean, they definitely.
This motherfucker was like on day X, didn't even plan a day, was like, no, I do not commit to my own fraud. On day X, planet Nibiru will crash into Nibiru. Love that name. Will crash into our planet and everything's just gonna die.
Planet Zaboomafoo will crash into our planet and we will all be turned into lemurs.
He's just gonna clacker the universe. Boom, it broke. This didn't pass safety guidelines.
So actually, did you know that before all of his Vissarion-ness, he was actually a traffic cop?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so he was a traffic cop.
I don't even... Fucking cops abusing power? No.
No, never.
Couldn't happen. Only in Russia.
Yeah, sorry, can't say that with a straight face.
Only with a gay face.
Yeah. That's like every time I park in our parking spot, because it's like right next to like the dumpster walled off area, and then there's a post right there, so it's like kind of hard to get in there. And it's like I park and then I get out and I look at my car and I'm like, I can never park straight. And I go, then again, I'm not, so why should I?
Whenever anyone's like, drive straight, I'd be like, can't.
It's always
I can only
forward.
Go queerly forward.
It's always forward, never straight. You lose
For me,
friends
it's not
that
even
way.
forward. It's queerly forward.
Oh, nice.
I can't continue straight. I can only continue queerly forward.
Yeah.
There's a queer forward direction. We should follow it.
Exactly.
I feel like you're not seeing clearly.
I can see clearly now. The rain is gone.
The straights are gone.
And then another fun fact is, so after he was dismissed from the traffic police, Sergei became a regular at a Siberian UFO club, and for some time was seeking contact in so-called anomalous zones.
Gotta love a UFO spotter turned Jesus.
Right, yeah. But apparently looking for UFOs did not become his idea fou. And apparently that is his French term for fixed idea. So, I probably mispronounced that too, but deal with it.
He didn't fixate on UFOs. He was able to refixate
on Jesus.
On being Jesus.
Yes.
So, and write 18 volumes of a Last Testament, and no one's like, hey, maybe he needs a therapist.
Well, actually, I don't even know if he needed a therapist, because this next part says that Torup turned his attention to methods of exerting psychological influence on people. He attended several courses in Moscow that were popular in the 1990s and delivered his first sermon on air from a small television studio in Siberia.
So that actually feeds into a lot of... So motherfuckers like stereotypical narcissists. Most cult leaders are narcissists. If
Jim
you think
Jones,
you're a god, you have a god complex. Pretty fucking obvious. Yeah. But like... So there's this, not like idea, it's like, I don't know, there's this whole like thing going around that's like, a lot of narcissistic men, couples counseling is not helpful for them. It only gives them language with which to further oppress their partner. Kind of like that whole, what's his face, motherfucker that's in all like the Superbad and the stoner movies, Jonah Hill. who was like all fucked up about his girlfriend.
Oh my god, I've
So,
been seeing that
all he did is go
over.
to therapy and learn words like boundaries and
Mhm,
communication in
But
order to
it's all about respecting his boundaries and
well, it's all about what
his
she needs to do with
boundaries.
her body and how she needs to sacrifice her career to make
For-
himself
for
comfortable,
his
but he would not make
boundaries.
similar sacrifices. Nor are those sacrifices really rooted in a healthy relationship. They're rooted in control and a lack of trust.
Yeah.
So like similar to this motherfucker,
Yeah.
he would rather exert control and learn psychological words in order to which further manipulate people, not with which to better himself.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much therapy is useful to someone who is only seeking to find the better, find the higher footing, essentially, regardless of who's at the lower footing.
Exactly.
So, you know, people that are going to just profit off the moment.
Yeah. I honestly kind of started to have a bad feeling about Jonah Hill when he did that most recent movie where like he's, you know, the Jewish guy that's like dating the black chick and like doing the podcast about culture, but he like has this like slicked back grease bag hairstyle.
It's the
and,
weirdest little
he's
like
still
he's
like still embracing that like sleazy fucking like slicked back like look.
I can go back further than that, and I'm not trying to be a hipster about this. My first weird feeling about Jonah Hill wasn't super bad when he made a big joke about a teenage girl getting her period on his leg.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, I only had a period for like 3 years. Then I got on Mirena because I wanted to fuck without fucking consequences. And periods sucked as a non-binary person. I'm like, this shouldn't happen to my body. I saw an episode of House where this girl was born immune to testosterone and she was really a boy. That's me. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So like, but as a person that for like a few years went through that, it's kind of a shitty, traumatizing moment. And to like randomly have a period on a person, not a joke. It's not comfortable. And if it is a joke, it's not a joke that like a white cis man should be making. It's kind of like, wow, punching down, bro. That's way to make people feel more dysphoric and uncomfortable in their own bodies during like the most uncomfortable part of their lives. So like dudes that made like, oh, look at how gross women's bodies are jokes. I was like, oh, you're probably going to be weird later. And I was right. Motherfucker's weird. I'm just like,
all right.
Like my autistic ass doesn't read faces in the moment, but long term, I get some shit right every now and then. Broken clock, right twice a day. But yeah, so like Vissarion was good at like being a mega narcissist, cutting people off from education, resources, anything that would question his power. And you know, he learned a lot of that from psychological backgrounds. And he used that. I mean, it sucks because I really wish he were more original. Because as I was reading this, I was like, I swear to God, I feel like you followed the blueprint for a typical cult. He started embezzling money. He was charging people, what, like 300 ruples or some shit, whatever their money was, a month for like membership, and then asking them for more money. I was like, it's just a Ponzi scheme. Not even a Ponzi scheme. It's just an embezzlement scheme. Yeah. Like, you're just scheming money off of people that are scared.
That's the messed up part is like
really?
When certain people started to like look at him a little closer, even like some of his followers, they would realize that like he was very hypocritical because of this whole, oh, you know, you can't seek medical treatment, but then he was using their money to travel to go and get medical treatment.
Dude, okay, so then I'm gonna say
something
a little controversial. It kind of reminds me of Gandhi with his wife.
Oh.
Have you heard about Gandhi and his wife? Where he was like, it is against our Hindu practices for you to receive treatment for this illness. You need to die from it because it is against our religion for you to receive treatment.
Didn't
she dies. He got the exact same illness and then said, I am too important to the people. I need treatment because I'm important. He receives treatment and lives. And I was like, motherfucker, no, not you, Gandhi. I thought you were a good dude. No!
It just reminds me of the South Park movie when they're going down to hell and you see Gandhi there and he's just like,
yo, bro, your wife though. I mean, I know none of our heroes are perfect, but like, bro, really? You're like,
that's my your wife.
Oh, and then he would sleep with underage virgins fully nude multiple nights
Gandhi?
In order to show how pure and chaste he was, that he wouldn't even touch these naked young virgins to like as a demonstration of chastity. And I was like, I'm not like every night, but like frequently.
Yeah, but still,
I'm like,
I don't think that's a demonstration of chastity. I think that's a.
I demand to sleep with naked young ladies, and none of them will say that I fucked them.
Right.
I know this episode isn't talking shit about Gandhi, but like,
I mean,
kill your heroes, man.
Seriously, they always say don't meet your heroes.
I am Satan. You heard it here first. So,
on D2D News, Dab to Death Network.
Gandhi's a bitch. Sexist as hell.
Anyway.
But yeah, so most men in power are sexist and will let you die. Is what we're learning.
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, so that was his big thing, and he also had a thing where like everyone could only eat what was grown on his farm. Like there was massive like food control. And he was like, you can't eat food unless it was produced here and like manufactured here, and like massive like control over all of that. And I'm sure he wasn't holding himself to those same standards.
Of course not.
No.
All the pictures I ever saw of him, he looks very well fed and in his nice clean robe and his nice manicured little Jesus beard and his hair. And he's just like very portraying, like you said, the white Jesus image. And it's like, bro, if your people don't look like that, they're well fed. Your people are not taken care of. Your people are literally dying.
Yeah, I mean, without some loaves,
there was like
fishes,
children.
bitch.
There was like children that started dying, and then like I think that was like
that was the thing that got him arrested. I think it was only like a few years ago.
Yeah, I think it was like 2018 or 2019 when the kids died, and so then the investigation started.
I think he was only like really arrested and brought in like maybe like 3 years.
2020. Actually, I think it was 2020 exactly.
Yeah, like 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's in my notes down the line here.
So he was keeping this up for a very long time.
Oh, well, yeah.
And I saw the video of him getting taken in, and he looked like kind of older.
Yeah, because
and I was like,
he started in the 1990s. Yeah, it started in 1991, and it started before that because at the age of 18, he said, "quote Unless I become world famous, I won't be able to live on this earth." And he wrote this in a letter to home at 18 years old.
You know, things totally sane people say. On the reg. I'm totally a sane person. I just unless I'm famous, I can't be alive here. So
well, but it is easy to see why popularity did kind of seek him out, because against the backdrop of economic collapse, the disintegration of the USSR, broken hopes and discredited values, the ideas of the 30-year-old Jesus about universal happiness in the remote taiga and the approaching end of the world found their audience.
Well, yeah, especially since Russia had this united one Russia like idea, and they're rapidly losing countries. Ukraine is leaving, and like multiple other territories are like just like, hey, we want freedom, we want space. Now they're actively trying to annex Ukraine back because they're like, we need this united one Russia policy, and using whatever excuse, gaslighting, projecting, saying that other people are attacking them when they're the ones being attacked, like. The reverse victim and offender policy. So they're actively trying to like reunite this one Russia when they've had, economic problems, people starving. They're looking for an answer in anybody. And then we have a second coming of Jesus that says, as long as you pay, 400 rubles a month, you have salvation with me. You have safety, you have freedom. And, when you're afraid, when you're uneducated, when you're backed into a corner, you'll take any ladder you're given.
Exactly.
So, that's how most cults form, is taking advantage of people that need an answer. And most answers aren't easy. They're really rough. They're really complicated. But Jesus is an archetype that we've established within our culture that establishes easy answers as opposed to delving deeper into scientific, into, psychological, to like all different branches of study, those complicated answers that actually yield results.
Yeah, well, and that's honestly always been kind of one of my biggest issues with like especially Christianity and like Catholicism, where it's like, oh, you can go to confessional and just be like, I'm sorry, I was a piece of shit, but like I'm gonna tell you about it and I'm forgiven.
Well, and you can say sorry to a person behind. Yeah, you can say you're sorry to a person behind a wall and never actually make amends to the people you hurt. So you can hurt people left and right. As long as you're sorry to Jesus, it doesn't matter if you're sorry to them, because you're us versus them, and the them probably deserves it. As long as you feel bad about it to Jesus, you're a good person, and they're still them.
It's like religious classism, basically.
Establishing an us versus them mentality is the quickest way to establish cohesion in an uneducated populace. So, like, I mean, just saying, like, they want to hurt us because we are who we are. I mean, like, America does it, Christianity does it, Catholicism does it, a lot of countries do it. Cults do it. A lot of places establish the us versus them mentality. So I like to encourage people, whenever they feel that there is an us versus them, to like deconstruct that and be like, okay, who's benefiting from the
question?
Us versus
Why
them?
is there this us versus
why is
them?
there an us versus them? Now, I'm not going to say there isn't an us versus them in some aspects. There are major transphobes that want me dead because I've cut my titties off. It's I'm like, it's not like whereas if I told them I had cancer and I was going to die, they'd be like, oh, you poor thing.
Right.
But
you're
now,
so brave.
You're so brave. But I can just tell them, hey, I feel better without breasts. I never wanted them. I wish my body didn't have them. And I don't really feel connected to femininity. And now I'm going to hell.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I don't think the government is invested in an us versus them against Christianity. I think Christianity is invested in creating an us versus them. And I would encourage people who are afraid of trans people, who are afraid of gay people, to really figure out who's benefiting from them hating someone they don't know, who just happens to be really good at making costumes. Like, it's ain't that serious. I just decided that I didn't want to stop playing dress up. That's it. It's not that serious. So like, yeah, just investigate the us versus them dichotomies, because those dichotomies benefit the Vissarions. They benefit the people who are trying to get something out of you based on your fear and your lack of education. So embrace education and try to like not be afraid of shit just because it's different. And you inevitably have at least more fun experiences, more educated experiences. You don't need to like totally do away with everything you know, but you can at least know more things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was happy to see that Vissarion was like arrested and shit, but it's weird to know that the City of the Sun is still maintaining.
Yes.
It's still active. Actually, There's still people there. It's an active community. They did pull back on the medical what's it? Commandment.
Well, and like that actually did happen while Vissarion was still there, and I think that might have been more of like a
public pressure kind of thing.
Well, yeah, because like there was a lot of pressure starting to build on them at the time, and actually the KSB, which is kind of like, you know, the more modern KGB, it's like the state bureau, basically, you know. They assigned a case manager to the commune pretty much from day one. And there was actually a guy, I think his name was Rednick.
Good old communism, man.
Yeah, there was a guy named Rednick. He was basically like the social media manager for the commune for the Church of the Last Testament. He was responsible for their Facebook page and like, you know, this, that, and the other.
Bro, if I had a state appointed Facebook page manager, bitches couldn't stop me. I don't care if they're Russian. Run my Facebook page. Shit's exhausting. I don't want to post shit. I just want to make horns.
Right. But then, so he did start to loosen up eventually. And I do think that this was more of a ploy, like we mentioned, due to the pressure, but also to try and lure more people in.
Yeah,
because eventually it's just like,
if it's too tight of a net, you start like losing people.
Exactly.
A broader net.
They try to squeeze out of the net. They're like, no, I don't want this. I don't want this.
This makes me uncomfortable. We're starting to hit hard limits. Yeah. But if you start to, and that's the funny thing is when I was a kindergarten teacher, some advice my mom gave me, who was a preschool teacher, she said, she pointed me in the direction of some studies that had been done showing that teachers had tried starting out the year very strict and then loosening up, or starting out very loose and then getting stricter. They found most students liked the teachers and found them to be fun teachers when they started strict and loosened up. Whereas if they started loose and gained more rules, they hated the teacher by the end. They didn't respect the rules and they thought the teacher was like vindictive, like it was a personal thing.
Yeah.
So in general, you do a better job as an authority figure if you start out with a strict set of rules and people really want to impress you. And then once
or
you've
at least respect you enough to listen to what you're
impressed,
telling them.
respect, prove that they're the
Uh,
best, be
this
the best
this
little pick me
actually
boy.
this actually makes me
Like,
think of when I was in high school, and this story's not
yeah,
going to make me look the greatest, but this was back in my high school days when I lived in Fairfield, and we had a math teacher who on the very first day of school made the mistake of telling the entire class, and this is, like I said, Fairfield, where they don't really give a shit too much about the rules. And he told them on day one, he was just like, yeah, this is my first day teaching high school. I usually teach college classes, this, that, and the other. And like, he didn't really lay down any kind of authority or
a
groundwork for
college class and
anything.
a high school class are very different classes.
Drastically
One is
different.
paying to be there, one is forced to be
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
These are different
Yeah.
audiences.
So needless to say, the class
poor little Alf from a homie.
terrorized the hell out of them.
Yep. I was substitute for 10 years. I get it. I get it.
I think one time we went in before he got in there, and with permanent markers we drew a bunch of like pentagrams and upside down crosses and stuff on his
Dicks. I was thinking
whiteboard.
dicks.
No, just a bunch of pentagrams and upside
Good
down
for you,
crosses
little
and stuff.
Satanists.
Yeah.
Not just dicks.
Yeah,
Just
no.
being creative.
And so he walks in, he's like, "Oh, this is very funny," and he thinks it's dry erase, and he goes to erase it, and nothing's erasing, and he's
All you had to do was write over it with a dry erase marker, and then it would erase. That's how you get permanent marker off a dry erase board.
Huh.
That's what happens.
Fun fact.
That's what happens when you get a beginning teacher.
Yeah.
I started. My first district was Twin Rivers Unified, which is up in Natomas. So my first classes were like K through third, like Natomas kids, and I was beat up by a kindergartner on my third day. I'm not even. This kid attacked my legs. I left with 12 bruises.
It's like a chihuahua. It just goes for the ankles.
Motherfucker was pissed, and it was all because like he had to have some kind of like undiagnosed IEP that I wasn't aware of that wasn't included in the teaching files. But a kid picked up a counter, like one of those little foam counters that was like yellow on one side and red on the other that they use for counting tens groups and stuff. Mm-hmm. She picked it up and starts playing with it, and he decides he wants it. So he tackles her and starts ripping her hand open, and she grips it tight like, no, it's mine. And he's like ripping into her nails. And I'm like,
oh no,
bro, you're gonna injure this kid. So I'm like, hey, no. So I like kind of not pull him off, but like, pull him off as gently as I can. Like, no, thank you. And he just starts punching the shit out of me. And I was like, I'm gonna need you to sit outside. And I guide him to sit outside. And then I call the front office. Later that night, I found out I had like 12 bruises between thigh and ankle. Kid was pissed and having a bat. Did not like me at all. And I was like, he probably had something undiagnosed. And like, I'm a new person. Yeah. It's new order of operations. This is stressful for you.
I don't like change.
Yeah. I'm like, maybe you should be in like a neighbor class with a teacher that you're more used to. Because while I support you, you don't know me and I'm a stranger.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah. So subbing is rough. I don't know how we got on this topic.
Actually, I don't remember either.
I blame the dabs.
Yeah.
And the vodka.
Yeah. Dabs and vodka. It's a great combination.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we had mentioned, salvation was basically his key idea, his key concept is he would like predict
the dangled carrot.
This, he would predict this apocalypse, and then when that date came and nothing happened,
day X,
he would
never
literally
committed to a day.
No, he would just like X. He would just like they would like the day would come and he'd be like, "Oh, I never really promised you anything. I just warned you that
I was thinking this day might be big,
but there's still something coming. It's like the dragons in Game of Thrones.
I was just about to say the dragons in Game of Thrones. They're coming. It's gonna be great. They're gonna be the best dragons. It's that consistent dangled carrot, which is realistically how heaven operates within Christianity. Mm-hmm. It's a consistent dangled carrot that never needs to be delivered on, that you always need to earn, but you never really have to cash in on. Mm-hmm. Because the cashing in happens when there's no room for consequence or changing your mind.
Yeah.
So he was just trying to essentially recreate the dangled carrot. But he gave it too much concrete.
Yeah.
I mean, he was also an abusive narcissist. Let's not put that aside. But if you're going to be an abusive narcissist and you want to create a religion, you kind of have to like, I don't know, clean up your edges. Can't be like Planet Nibiru's gonna crash any day now because
Right.
man, that's gonna check's gonna come up due at some point.
It's gonna get old too eventually because people are gonna be like,
Yeah.
so it just keeps getting pushed back. Like,
Yeah, it needs to be a consistent thing. And the thing with Christianity is the reward comes upon death. So death is a known endpoint.
yeah,
And it's also an endpoint that cannot be negotiated. Planet Nibiru and Day X are things that can be negotiated forward and backward. Therefore, it lends doubt to your religion.
Yeah.
If you want to create a religion, it needs to be something past doubt, therefore past verification. It needs to be past any method of verification.
Yeah.
Which is not great. Like, I mean, if you look at cults long enough, you're like, okay, your problem is you got way too into your own fan fiction.
Yeah. Well, and like most cults, in August of 1999, he gave the sermon he called, "I want to show you how to love in a beautiful way." In it, he asserted that a man can have as many wives as he wants, quote, for the sake of the submissiveness of women. From that moment, love triangles began to appear in the commune, and men were allowed to change their wives. Some families could not bear this kind of psychological onslaught and fell apart. Then, Vissarion himself parted from his wife and took a new wife, a 16-year-old girl, who had been living with him since she was 7 years old.
It always gets groomy, pedophilic, and weirdly sexual and misogynistic.
Every time.
Like I was saying earlier, like I wish you were original. Like yeah. I wish if you were gonna fuck around with shit, can you do it in an original way? If you think you're the second coming of Jesus, maybe it's not so you can plow 16-year-old poon. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, no.
Like, even if you try to like really convert the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, that is not what Jesus's message was.
It really perverts the term "come to me, my child."
Like, come unto me, my children.
Oh God, no!
Witness my many graces.
It just got so cringy.
It's so gross. I hate it. Yeah, but he was really sexually abusive with a lot of people, and a lot of cults devolve into sexual abuse, especially of minors, especially of minor females.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and unfortunately a lot of Christianity has a lot of inbred misogyny into it that lends itself really easily to that.
Mm-hmm.
So he definitely took advantage of that.
Yeah.
And was like, hey, I wonder how many wives I can grow.
I want a harem.
I want a harem, and I want them to be all farm to table. Would like to raise them in my own image, and then defile my own image as only Jesus can.
Yeah.
And then I'm Satan.
And then towards the end, he got super lazy. Like, he used to address his...
lazy.
He never really spoke...
He got comfortable.
He didn't speak often. Like, he used to address his followers, like, once a month.
He was really into, like... This is where a part of me thinks, like, mental breakdown. Or the fucking Havana syndrome. Them sonic weapons.
Mm-hmm. We're looking at Russia.
Fucking Russia, making people crazy. Because they did experiment on their own people before they launched publicly. They didn't even like experiment on POWs. They were like, fuck you, our own people. There's disabled people and people we don't like, and gay people. Fuck them. Let's experiment on them. Oh fuck, I forgot what I was saying.
He just got lazy because like
so he got really, really, and at the beginning I was like, okay, you're clearly invested in your like narcissistic, possibly bipolar or schizophrenic like delusion of grandeur, and toward the end I feel like he's not even into it. He's like bored with his own delusions, and he's like, whatever, I'm comfortable. Which kind of feeds into the nature nurture model of mental health, because once all of his needs were cared for and he was no longer feeling he was needing to operate to survive, suddenly he's very comfortable and manageable. And as long as everyone is catering to all of his needs.
True. Because he literally started
he
like
meds, not
he literally started speaking every 4 months, and he would literally say the same thing every time. He would just kind of come out, wave his arms, and be like, "The end is coming someday." See you in 4 months.
The
And then
end's
just like
coming.
walk out. It just kind of
Some
like
point.
reminds me of like
I am God.
he's like the dude. He's like Lebowski. He just kind of comes out in his bathrobe and he's just like with a fucking white Russian in his hand and he's just like, comrades, the world is coming to an end someday.
Comrades, you will
see you in 4
all
months.
die
We
at some point.
some way
But
somehow.
for now, give me your children. Like, gross motherfucker. Like,
yeah,
they're all just gross old dudes. And I'm like,
bad.
and a lot of this, like, obsession with, like, virginal children, it's so gross. I feel like it, like, all leads back to this, like, Christian obsession of, like, original sin and not needing to fall from innocence into experience. And I'm like, bro, innocent people are dumb. Experienced people are dope. Like,
Right.
why? I'm sorry, if I'm on a job site, I don't want an inexperienced, innocent person.
Okay, that's the whole thing with
If
like
I'm
the
in
72
bed, I don't want
virgins
an
for the bombers,
innocent.
like the suicide bombers, when they're like, I get 72 virgins. And it's like, okay, but why? Why do you want 72 virgins?
Okay, but also, if you have 72 virgins, they never mention the sex.
True.
It might just be
it's a bunch of
72
nerdy guys playing
fucking-
Dungeons and
That's
Dragons.
what I was saying. Reminds me of a bunch of like D&D. There was a whole Family Guy episode where they had like yeah, where they just like died and it's just a bunch of like D&D dudes, and I'm like
they're just like,
virgin.
hey.
Virgin denotes the fact that there have been no other sexual conquest of said whole. Because any hole can be virginal. The Grand Canyon could be virginal, but I feel like they might have jerked off into that. Side note. But that, okay, so like no one's been in there. Like, I feel like if you're in any hole and no one's been in there, that just denotes a lack of safety and experience. And if I'm in a hole, I want to know it's safe. I don't care if I'm spelunking or what. I just want to know it's cared for and people know what the dangers are when I'm going in.
It's charted territory.
There's cleanliness. Maybe. There's scaffolding. There is an exit strategy should things go down the wrong way.
You know, you get in there and there's somebody going, so your emergency exits are located to the left and to the right. There is a cushion under your fucking seat and a mask will drop down from above.
Why would you not want experience? I don't get it. I don't get why anyone would want a virgin over like an experienced prostitute. Like, bitch knows her way around a genitalia. Like, good for that human being. I don't get it. I don't know.
So basically, once they started to get really seriously investigated, the FSB started to like pass information through the Forestry Service to them because so basically
they had their own like
they were like
commune.
logging.
They were like out in the middle of nowhere and fully self-sufficient.
They were
a while.
and what they would
so
also
it's hard
do.
To get in.
What they would also do is they would fell these like premium trees that were in their area and then they would take them and sell them to these wealthy influential people and like help them build their nice houses.
It's like the Amish with the fake fireplaces.
Yeah, so exactly.
That's a weird connection, but like any self-sufficient community is going to need an export.
Right.
So they had really good trees.
That's what they were doing is they had really good trees.
Bitches was selling tree. This hippie Jesus was selling tree. Acting like
people used to go to prison for that here,
right? People are still in prison for that here.
Yeah, what the hell,
right?
But so basically, the what they were saying is that this is it. Your cover's gone up in smoke. Your protection is gone, and everybody starts going, "Wait, what protection?" Right, and so then they start looking into like, well, why are these investigations happening now?
The Russian government protected Christian-based organizations for a while.
So basically,
until they got weird.
The protection the commune may have previously enjoyed the end of the protection came along with the resignation and arrest of regional forestry minister Dmitry Mosladulov. That was a fucking good one.
Haste have friends in high places, like trees.
And so basically this led some people to believe that there were financial motivations behind the sudden interest in the commune.
Oh no, the cult that was embezzling money from people might have been paying someone off? No. They were Jesus.
It was
people.
just the trees, man.
They're just talking to a tree and praying to God.
So basically what happened is over the years, the area had become the center of a premier timber felling industry in Russia.
Which is funny because Russia's main export is gas, not timber. So
I think this is mainly exporting it to other parts of Russia
yeah,
for
no,
the
no,
building.
no. Yeah, timber is good within Russia, but like,
I don't think they're like.
I'm like, wow,
selling
they
it
found their
outwards.
niche. I mean, it's not like they could afford to like mine gasoline.
But basically, the
or
Vissarionites were
gasoline?
frack it.
Frack it.
Yeah, just frack it.
Frack to hell.
But basically, the Vissarionites were starting to kind of claim that they were being pushed out of business. And that's why the investigations happened.
Capitalism
had nothing,
again.
I mean, capitalism again, but
Follow
it also
the
had nothing
money
to
every
do
time.
with the sexual stuff.
Yeah, they're like, we don't care that you're abusing young children. We don't care that people are dying. But the logging industry, where would we be without our wood?
David Koresh in Waco. We don't care that you're doing all of this other shit, but the second you're talking about like, oh, well, maybe we don't want to be a part of America. We want to secede and do our own thing.
Most countries,
they're like, whoa.
The moment you fuck with their infrastructure, most countries don't care about their individual people because people are recyclable, changeable. Mm-hmm. They have millions of people. Mm-hmm. But their infrastructure, which cares for millions of people or thousands of people or hundreds of people, whatever, is harder to replace than a person. So, like, the moment you fuck with their infrastructure, with their taxes, with their hierarchy in any sort of way, they're like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like, fuck as many kids as you want, but pay your taxes and comply with local labor codes.
Right.
Like, really? That's your values? Okay.
That's where your priorities are at. Got it.
I feel like big government is concerned with like taxation and like company codes. They don't give a shit about individuals. Small government could be considered concerned by individuals, but we have lobbying, which just makes small government concerned about large government issues again. So now we have advocacy groups, which are taking the place of what small government should be doing. I'm just going to get into political rants. That's what happens when I'm on my fourth double vodka cranberry.
So, basically, where we end up at is that on September 22nd, 2020, so yeah, fairly recently.
Yeah, it was only 3 years ago.
Russian authorities arrested...
Not even 3 years ago. It's not even September yet.
Oh, shit, you're right.
It's almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. Yeah. So, Russian authorities arrested Vissarion on charges of running an illegal religious organization, possible physical harm to others, and extortion, which is ironic because technically Russia had recognized the Church of the Last Testament as a religious organization previously.
So once it's recognized as a religious organization, donations are supposed to be allowed, and donations don't tend to have large limits. But once it becomes an enemy of the state, suddenly it's prone to regulation.
Exactly. So he was apprehended by the FSB and
two
the
other
rest
leaders,
of the charges.
2 other people were apprehended with
there
him
was
too.
There was more charges.
I could not pronounce their names, but
the other 2 charges were possible physical harm to others and extortion.
Yes.
So he was apprehended by the FSB and Russian police and taken to Novosibirsk Central District Court along with 2 assistants, Vadim Redkin, which was the social media manager, and Vladimir Vedernikov.
Double V, man.
Right, VV.
I think he was like a finance guy.
Probably. Sounds like a money guy.
Vladimir. And the money guy's going to go down.
Hey, Vladimir, bring the suitcase.
Give me the money.
Bring the suitcase.
Bring the suitcase, Vladimir.
With the little head nod, just... So after the arrest, the public prosecutor's office demanded that the Church of the Last Testament religious organization, which had a membership of around 4,500 people at the last count, should be banned. It is now up to the courts to rule on the matter. But,
so it's not been officially banned yet.
No,
right?
and basically...
Because the City of the Sun is still an active settlement with functioning
They've actually branched out and had like different settlements.
Yeah, and they're trying to get more socially acceptable so that...
Well, they're an ecological commune now, is what they're toting.
Without the problem person.
Yes.
Jesus has been done away with.
Yeah. Without Jesus, we can function as a perfect functioning society.
I mean, are we wrong?
But basically what's going on now is that Vissarion is just sitting in fucking prison with no trial date set. And this is almost 3 years later. He's still just sitting there.
Yeah, which they've done interviews with a lot of his followers who still very much believe that he's the second coming of Jesus, and the fact that he's in prison is only
solidifying their belief.
It's only solidified their belief
because Jesus was persecuted
yeah,
as well.
he was persecuted, he was in prison before he was eventually put to death. So honestly, for their faith, the best thing that could happen would be for him to be executed.
Mm-hmm. He'd be a martyr.
Yeah, either he is
which
let
is what
go
I'm thinking he's hoping
and
for.
allowed to keep, harming people, or he's put to death by the state and he really was the second coming of Jesus and he has solidified his religion.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it's a win-win for him. Yeah. In that he wants to, subjugate and fuck up people.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're gonna win when you're dead, but like for his objectives.
If or when he does go to trial, he might be in trouble since they also found rifles and ammo caches on site. Besides this, there are the additional and predictable rumors of incest, pedophilia, murder, sex rights, property fraud, and so on. If convicted, this kind of seems like a light sentence to me, though. It says, if convicted, Vissarion, self-proclaimed Jesus, cult leader, and former traffic cop Sergei Torup, could face up to 12 years in prison.
I'm honestly not surprised at the level because you have to look at Russian values. Russian values are heavily Christian values, so persecuting a modern day Jesus is not going to read well politically. Additionally, they're really more concerned with homophobia and international threats. So they want to be majorly homophobic. And that motherfucker was homophobic. Like they're like, oh, you don't like gay people too? Oh, you don't like foreign governments too? You're similarly fascist and support some level of authoritarianism. You're not my biggest threat.
Yeah.
You're not my biggest issue. So I get why the Russian government isn't making him like
public enemy number one.
Especially because at the height of, his government, he had or his religion, he had almost a million followers. So like, it's kind of like our government trying to prosecute Trump right now. After having that many followers, it's not that he doesn't need to be prosecuted. He fucking does.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But how many people are going? But how many people are going to fucking come for you once you try to prosecute their personal Jesus, regardless of how fraudulent and abusive and narcissistic and megalomaniacal? I don't know how to make that an adverb. Megalomaniacal. Yes, yeah. Megalomaniacal. He is. Regardless of those things, they're still going to come and defend that person because they have a lack of access to education, support, and a heightened access to fear. So,
So it's a cult.
Yeah, it's a cult. It's a cult of personality.
I love that song.
Based on his entire, based on his entire personality.
Yeah.
So, Vissarion is running his own cult. We have various cults of various degrees. I'm glad that he's getting persecuted. Catholicism, Christianity, Republicanism, conservatism, realistically, to some degree, heterosexuality. Everything is indoctrinated. Think about it.
Facts.
So just I had this teacher back in high school. He was just like major hippie that loved Gandhi, regardless of the fact that Gandhi killed his wife. But he was big on like, don't believe everything you think about everything you believe.
Yeah.
And that like I took a lot with me. So like, if you're afraid of something and you don't know why, think about it. And if you don't have enough education behind a thing and you go, well, I'm afraid of this because of this, but I don't necessarily know all the details behind it, we'll look into the details. Maybe you've been lied to. Maybe something.
Educate yourself. If nobody's willing to educate you, educate yourself. Question things. And that's why me and my grandma stopped getting along, because she tried to push religion on me and I started questioning things. And then it was just, we just constantly butted heads. Like I was supposed to, in 7th grade, we did a homeschool charter school combination where it was like 3 days a week I would go to the charter school and then the rest of the week I would be at home. So it's only 2 days at home, whatever.
Yeah.
It might have been flipped around. I don't know, but whatever. So we did that for 1 year, and then me and my grandma got into it so many times because
Mhm.
I was almost 13, and I started to question things and get a little older.
Develop your own
Yeah,
independence.
exactly. Start to like have an identity and start to figure things out on my own. And then so like she didn't like that. So then she sent me back to public school. And then kept schooling my sister for the next year, and then that didn't go well because just, yeah, lots of things, lots of reasons. But
Because
like,
people develop their own personalities
well,
and
and
their
like
own
religious
focuses, and then other
indoctrination just
people.
never ends well.
Well, and when you approach parenting with the same sort of authoritarianism that you approach religion, it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
Because the process of parenting is helping an individual become themselves, and the process of religion and authoritarianism is creating a person in your own image. And the more you try to create someone in your own image, the more they will rebel.
Yeah.
Which is honestly why I like to say that I've never rebelled against my mom, but I rebelled against my dad all the time because my dad had rules.
Yeah.
My mom's rule was, please talk to me about anything you need help with. Please be open with me, and if you ever need anything, please talk to me because I want to support you. And it's hard to not comply with that. My dad's rule was, don't dye your hair and don't be gay. My natural hair color is brown, and I'm married to another female. Suck my dick. And not saying like that's his thing. My mom told me when I was 3, I asked her if I could marry a princess and if that was allowed.
Yeah.
So it's not like I since been gay since I knew what gay was. Since before I knew what gay was. I get that.
Yeah.
But like the more you try to control a person, the less they will comply with that, and the more they will demand to be themselves, or the more they will crumble and not become a viable human being. Because a lot of people do, unalive themselves and become very depressed or very aggressive or very angry people, because they've been forced to become something someone else wanted them to be instead of whatever's comfortable for them.
Yeah.
So fuck a cult, listen to Satan, get educated.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, other than that, that was pretty much all I had as far as Vissarion goes.
Yeah,
We're
that's
just
pretty
kind of
much all
waiting to
I
hear.
had.
We're just kind of waiting to hear what happens with them.
Yeah, we're kind of it's one of those fun, lovely modern cults that is not super original, but
No.
we're dealing with a very authoritarian, right-leaning Christian state. So it would kind of be like if we had like we have a kind of similar setup here. I mean, we do have much more gay rights here than Russia has, at least in California. To not go to Florida anytime soon.
Well, and
fucking
go
Ron
back to the Red for Filth episode, and you can hear the list of anti-drag and anti-LGBT
Oh yeah, the fact that I would be a
legislation.
felon in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Love that.
Like,
Love that
wow,
for
okay.
me. I mean, why are you obsessed with me? Oh my god. You like made a whole law about me? Like, I feel like we're like in-laws. It's serious. You're like stalking me. Are you so obsessed with me? But yeah, no. So there's a lot of homophobia and transphobia here. We don't have essentially murder gangs that are government sanctioned to kill gay people, which is kind of what they have in Russia. And
that's a plus.
It's illegal to wear a rainbow in Russia. And there were people that got together in during there was like a soccer like playoff thing. I'm so not a sports gay, guys. There was like some soccer playoff or something that happened in Russia, and people wore jerseys in all different colors. And people with a person with a red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple decided to all meet up and take a picture together in front of the Russian capital and then disperse. Because that was the only way they could get a rainbow in front of like a Russian plate, because they'd be arrested. And then even after the photo went around, the Russian government was like,
trying to arrest them.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, but like, imagine if we had a similar sort of cult or something that arose in America, a cult that said we respect our troops and respect our cops and lick their boots and we don't like gay people and by the way, our leader looks and acts like white Jesus, and we need to how well would it go if we had a President Joe Biden or whoever the next Democratic or even Republican might even be harder, iteration of our leadership, how well would it go that person persecuting that person? In our current over-radicalized, hyper-extremist society, possibly triggered by sonic weapons from Russia and Havana Syndrome. Russia.
Remember that.
How well would it go to persecute a religious figure steering into hard right ideology linking to fascist oppression? How well would it go bringing that person in for prosecution? How easy would it be? Even as a Democrat, it might even be easier. As a Republican, you would get impeached. You're arresting Jesus?
Oh God, yeah.
I feel like even Trump couldn't get away with arresting Jesus unless he was like, no, I'm the real Jesus. And that's a whole other shit can.
With his little baby hands.
So
He's
like,
no, I am the real Jesus.
I am the real Jesus. Guys, you don't even understand. I just
my
porn
following
stars.
is huge. I have
just
a huge
fuck porn
following.
Stars, and that's why I'm Jesus. He's the worst. But like a lot of modern day politics, because of how media works, media is supposed to be the fourth arm of our legislative branch, or of our government. We're supposed to have legislative, judicial, executive, and media, the invisible fourth arm. That's supposed to keep us educated. Unfortunately, our media has like skews left-leaning, right-leaning, lobbyist-leaning, whatever. So now a lot of our government is more about aesthetics and optics than it is about actual policy. So we could have a great policy. And I learned this back in like high school. I had a government teacher named Mr. Pitty. And we all had to essentially run for president. And we grouped up and we had to pick a person to be the group's leader. I was the leader. Back then I had ass and legs for days. And I did not understand that sexualizing a child was weird because I was like 16. And I was like, I want this song with this badass, like, background. I think it was like American Woman or some shit, which is highly sexual. And I was wearing like a pencil skirt and a vest and a short sleeve button up with like pictures of me walking to like American Woman. It looked like I was about to open a strip club. Like, as an adult, I'm like, that is so uncomfortable. I was like 16. Gross. I like self-sexualized to try to be a president of a fictitious America. It's so weird. But I like was the face, and we like made this whole like video and everything, and we wrote policy. And we did a vote. And I lost by a landslide. Like, I think I got like one vote in the whole class because we weren't allowed to vote for ourselves. And like of the whole class, one person voted for me. When it came to policy, I won by a landslide. Everyone voted for me. Like a good over 50% of the class was like, this policy is what I want. And so at 16 years old, I was held up for, this is a person that's clearly hated, but they're smart guys. Why do you hate this person? They're so smart. And I'm like, oh, this will do great for my self-confidence. I'm not going to chase approval for years. But like, I also learned like really early on that like, it doesn't really matter what you believe or what you think. It matters how you present.
Yeah.
So it also goes back to like, you know, parents that would rather get taught by Christians who are known pedophiles than someone that dresses up like Satan and has a degree. Mm-hmm. It's all about how you present. So if you are acknowledging a counterculture and acknowledging an alternate narrative, you're not going to be as approved and accepted at all. At all. Whereas if you are an insane person that can write 18 fucking testaments and of like insanity and saying, hey, maybe don't let your kids live, but you dress yourself up to look like a savior. Everyone looks
and
like
then marry a 16-year-old.
And then marry a 16-year-old. That's fine. You can do that because you look like Jesus. You don't look like Satan. And I can trust my eyes, can't I? Not weird. People are fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's so ass backwards.
It is. Back ass word.
All right. Well, I think that is a good place to end it.
It is. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming out, and thank you for coming out in full face.
It's been fun. Yeah. I feel like my eyes water instead of turning red. I start laughing and it's like, bah. Well, not even sad. I just am like watery eyed.
Would you like to plug any of your socials or any upcoming
Oh yeah.
events?
If you want to
Obviously.
follow me on social media, my Instagram is Sir Vix official, SIR VIX official. I'm not spelling that right now.
Yeah, it's
Uh
official, guys. You
just like
know.
the regular spelling with like a C. Um and I have a lot of shows coming up in August. I'm going to be in San Francisco. I'm going to be in
For the
Chico. I'm going to be in
Cobras.
Modesto. Red Fulfill's birthday show is coming
Yeah.
up, so I'm going to be in that. That's going to be fun. But yeah, just follow me on Instagram, and I tend to post a lot of my social media stats and flyers and all that fun stuff.
There you go.
And yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great. Other than that, if you have any feedback on this or any other episode, you can just send it in to feedback@dabtodeath.com. Unless you just want to send me a message on any of the socials, then you can send it to @dabtodeath.
Unless you really didn't like it, and then I'm gonna need you to like write that on a piece of paper and like roll it up real tight and then shove it somewhere where I can't see it. Thanks.
Exactly. Unless you're on Instagram, then it's @dabtodeathpodcast.
Oh yeah, send them shit. I don't care.
Other than that, tune in next week for, I want to say, the Killer Parents episode. Yeah, all about parents that decided to unalive their children.
You know, as you do.
Yeah, well, I kind of, it's like a bit of a running theme because I did Casey Anthony, because she came out with her little documentary about like, oh my god, my opinion, and like,
let's monetize,
let's cry because I cry,
murder.
and like, it's just, it's like fucked up because like the stack of photos and pictures, she's like, I go through these every day. I'm like, those look brand new.
You're like, none of those corners are dog ears,
Yeah,
bitch.
and then like she had all
You
these
just printed
DVDs that had like files and photos on them. She's like, I look at these every day too. And I'm like, you burned those yesterday at Walmart.
Like it's clearly staged.
Yeah, they're brand new.
It's so weird. Like you can tell a parent that is like clearly had to do with their kid's death because it's so staged.
Yeah,
so staged.
But yeah, other than that, be careful out there. You never know when you may get dabbed to death.